Argentina is deep into its presidential election with just over 2 weeks to go before the second round runoff. The folks, Economy Minister Sergio Massa and far-right libertarian Javier Milei. They are the two leading contenders. The elections will take place against the backdrop of one of the worst crises for the economy, at least in decades, with inflation at 140%. Joel Richards explains from Buenos Aires.
After 23 years behind the wheel as a taxi driver in Buenos Aires, Hugo Fernandez says he has seen it all. This week, the latest problem was a shortage of fuel.
There
were queues of up to 200 meters, and even then you could not fill up the tank. It was difficult to offer the normal service.
Economy Minister Sergio Massa, who is in a presidential runoff, has announced he's extending a price freeze until next February to help relieve the shortage.
We have to debate face-to-face the profit margins needed to guarantee investment in the hydrocarbon sector while not hitting Argentine people in the pocket.
Massa is looking to avoid any economic shock ahead of the second round elections, in which he goes head-to-head with the libertarian Javier Milei. The two candidates offer very different visions for Latin America's third largest economy. Massa seeks to assure voters he can oversee a recovery. Far-right candidate Milei says only his radical proposals that include dollarizing the economy and doing away with the central bank can transform the country after years of decline. These elections take place in the context of triple-digit annual inflation. And given previous experiences of hyperinflation or the crash of 2001, the question is not only who wins the elections, but what happens next. Argentina's economic situation is fragile. Inflation is running at 140%. The country is by far the IMF's biggest borrower. And given the shortage of foreign reserves, it is using yuan from a recently announced extended currency swap agreement with China to make repayments. With this outlook, there is not only uncertainty among many people, but also resignation.
Over the past decades, Argentina's history repeats itself, but as well as that, everything keeps getting worse.
Argentines go to the polls on November the 19th to decide which candidate they want to lead them out of this latest economic turmoil. Joel Richards for CGTN in Buenos Aires.
Let's learn more about these two candidates getting ready for that second runoff, November 19th. Now, they both have very different approaches to saving the country, so to speak. Current Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, has defended his approach to inflation. He has introduced measures to stimulate the economy, including a $1.3 billion loan used to finance food security issues. Yet 2/5 of Argentines live in poverty. Mr. Massa's future economic agenda includes lowering the value-added tax and creating a digital currency. The opponent, Javier Milei, is proposing massive overhauls. The major focus is on scrapping the peso for the U.S. dollar and eliminating the central bank. He also would revoke the country's application to BRICS and has promised to slash public subsidies. For more on how these two, or which one would be better for the economy, we're joined by a good friend, Otaviano Canuto, Senior Fellow at the Policy Center for New South and former VP of the World Bank. Good to see you again. Before we get into who's better or worse for the economy, this 140% inflation is a number we don't often say, and it is a head-scratcher. Explain to us how they got to this position to begin with.
The fact is, Phil, the old style laxity with respect to public spending and monetary supply, as the region and the country, Argentina itself, in the past, and also many other countries in the region, passed by, you go through a period in which the government loses control of the money supply. It ends up financing in monetary ways the public debts. The public debts becomes beyond control, and all things, inflation, hyperinflation is the simple manifestation of that.
Right. I mean, is that a nice way of saying that foreign governments, their friends and neighbors, don't want to invest in the country because they're worried about what's going to happen to the currency and potentially, obviously, the economy.
Yes, who would not be, even the Argentines themselves, they would not invest, they would not put into risk their portfolios. If as we know, under conditions of hyperinflation, anything can happen. You don't have any security with respect to the valuation of your assets. So there is no such a thing as an environment, an economic environment in which investments go up in a situation of hyperinflation. It's self-destructive.
And like any election, the person who's currently in the chair is highly likely to get blamed for the problems. And I'm talking about the economic minister who's there now versus the other candidate. I mean, I would think that whatever plan is put out there, the opposition would say, well, you've had chances to put in this plan. The plans haven't worked, and we need a new leader. Who's better for the economy?
Well, see, that's exactly why Javier Milei has managed to acquire such a leading position, including for the second round. I saw today some polls, some preliminary polls of opinion, pointing to a victory of Javier Milei. Apparently, a substantial part of the votes on Patricia, the other candidate from the right that didn't manage to be at the final, have moved to Milei. So as of today, and I think, and I find, let's say, reliable, the source of polls that I saw are pointing to Javier Milei winning the election. The level of disappointment and disillusionment with the establishment is such that the Argentinians seem to be really willing to take the risk of doing whatever from an outsider. Now, Milei's projects are at this moment more of a wishful thinking than a real possibility. Milei has, as you correctly said, has, let's say, proposed to dash out the local currency, close the central bank, and adopt the dollar. But the question is, in order for him to do it, in order for Argentina to manage to switch towards a dollarized economy, Argentina would need at least, in the most, let's say, humble estimate, something like $40 billion to serve as the basis for its dollarized monetary base. And Argentina today has negative reserves, and we're not for the currency swap that it has.
Are they bankrupt?
Yes, they are. In fact, yes. We're not for the currency swap with the PBOC, with the People's Bank of the Republic, that allowed Argentina to pay part of the installment of the amortization with the IMF. Argentina would have defaulted on the IMF, just to give an idea.
Right. But look, let me take it to the next step here. If they're essentially in default, then why not just default? And then you could switch to the dollar. I imagine it would be very, very chaotic for at least the short term. You would pay your creditors a percentage on the dollar, but at least if you take the short-term pain now, there would be a more positive long-term future. Do you think the public will be okay with that? Because I can't imagine it being nothing less than chaotic.
Now, look, Phil, default has happened in the past. In fact, the outstanding debt that Argentina has now outside is either the short-term debt with China through the currency swap agreement, or with the IMF itself. It's not a matter of private debt, because Argentina defaulted not long ago, remember. So default will not necessarily solve the problem. Still, Argentina will have to find ways to roll over the debt with Argentina, and the fact is that given the scarcity of dollars in Argentina, many exporters are refraining to sell to Argentina because they are afraid that they will not be paid back. The chaos is such that, you know, the temptation by the incumbent government to adopt temporary freeze of price freeze, which is a stratagem so often used in the past in many countries in the region, it never works. You try to curb the hyperinflation by freezing the price of gasoline or diesel, oil. And then what happens, as it happening in Argentina, is that the product, the commodity disappears from the market. Whoever has it keeps it in stock instead of selling, because a sale of a price that is quite below what it would be the minimum according to the inflation is not worth it.
Right.
So you only stay with the chaos.